The format of this session, as you can see, is the two of us are going to come up here, and probably should just be meeting of the mind, because I got to tell you, after the fun run this morning, I'm pretty scrambled. But in any event, it'll be very organic. I asked Kyle, I said, do you want me to send you a list of questions? He said, you can ask me anything. So I'm taking that to heart. That's the format of the session. We'll be here until 1:30. So just before I call Kyle up, Kyle Clark joined 9 News in 2007 and is the anchor and managing editor of the 6 p.m. weeknight program, Next, leading a team that has been honored 4 times with the Edward R. Murrow Award for Excellence in Innovation. He is a political reporter for 9 News and moderates the station's nationally recognized political debates. His weekly Word of Thanks micro-giving campaigns have raised nearly $15 million for Colorado's nonprofits since 2020. And in his spare time, he anchors 9 News at 9 and 10 p.m. Kyle, would you please join me on stage?
Good afternoon. Oh, that is cushier than I expected.
Right? Sinks right in.
I went about a foot deep in this thing.
We should have tested these out first. I feel like my arms are up here. So one of the things that I wondered in all of this was who would be interviewing whom, but I decided I would take the lead and start with the questions. But I encourage, Kyle, if you've got questions, especially about this robust crowd of municipal officials and sponsors and guests and other attendees, we can make this what we want. But I thought I'd first just start out with some of the basics.
Sure.
Everyone sees you on TV. I hope they do, and has probably seen you navigate the elections with the political debates and all that. But just what inspired you to get into the business in the first place?
Well, that's a good question. I think part of it is I grew up in a small town, and one of the best and worst things about growing up in a small town is that you know what everybody's doing at all times. You know, like at any given time, somebody could say, where's so-and-so, or where's so-and-so's dad, and you've got a pretty good idea based on the day of the week and time of day where that person is going to be, right? And that's the good and the bad of it, you know? And you kind of know everybody's business, too. And I think when I went off to college, I had an idea that I was interested in journalism. I was trying to decide between sports and news. But college was the first bigger environment that I was in. I mean, I went to a college where the student body was 2-3 times the size of my hometown, and it was impossible to keep tabs on everybody. And I was like, well, I still want to know the most I can about what's going on. So I've always just had an interest in knowing what's going on, knowing what people are up to. And I also come from a family of educators, for public school teachers, and they impressed on me at a young age that it's a gift to be able to explain things to people. I don't know that journalism is teaching right, but it is explaining, and that if you can explain something to somebody else, then you've given them a gift that they can then take to other people or use in their lives.
Since you brought up the subject of journalism and what is journalism and all that, what it was like 50 years ago, we mentioned the Edward R. Murrow Award. Edward R. Murrow did the news a whole lot different than folks do it today. What do you think has been the greatest incentive in the evolution of journalism, and how do you approach your brand of journalism as compared to what you might see with others?
It's funny you bring up Murrow, because usually when I get a viewer email or a tweet or something that references Murrow, it's packaged in something along the lines of, you are a waste of space and a horrendous journalist. Why don't you be more like Edward R. Murrow? And the other one that you'll get is Cronkite, too. You know, like the number of times I'll get an email that says, you know, that Walter Cronkite never once told me what he thought about something, and that's why he was a good journalist, and that is why you're a piece of garbage. And I'll often ask those folks, like, can you name me a piece of journalism that Walter Cronkite did? And without exception, the piece of journalism that people can name is when he reported on the Vietnam War and offered his analysis of why the war was a lost cause. Friends, that's the analysis that you're writing in, that you're so mad that I did on your local news, and I need to be more like this guy who is most famous for doing analysis on the national level. And to Murrow, right? I mean, what was Murrow best known for? First is war reporting, right? But then at home, Murrow was best known for standing up for people who spread ruinous lies about other Americans. That's what he was best known for. So if I'm aiming my boat in that direction, that's a good direction.
If just reading the news was reading the news, maybe not anyone could do it.
Anybody can do that,
Okay,
for sure.
but that's not journalism.
I hope not, no.
Okay. And yet, that's what a lot of people often say. I don't know about garbage, but they say, shouldn't you just be up there reading the news and just tell me what happened that day?
Well, I research it, I write it, then I read it. I'm a triple threat.
Okay.
When people say, you just read what goes in the teleprompter, I'll ask them, well, who do you think wrote what went in there?
Is that unusual in your profession?
A bit.
Okay. All right. Are you unusual in your profession?
Everybody's a little unusual.
Okay. How much has social media and the rise of social media contributed to the evolution of journalism, especially how we see it today and in the many forms that we see it today?
It's the best and the worst, right? Social media for journalism is like social media on so many other things that we do, perhaps the jobs that you do. It's the best and the worst thing. Let's start on a positive note, right? Social media is now a phenomenal way to have touch points with all kinds of different people that you might not have talked to before. The news comes to you. It comes to you as a consumer. It comes to you as an official. It comes to me as a journalist. It's never been easier for me to keep tabs on what different people are thinking. It's never been easier for folks to hold us accountable as we hold you accountable, right? Or we hold somebody else accountable. And that's good, right? That journalists should be accountable to the public as well. Obviously, don't need to tell you, social media is also a phenomenal tool for disinformation, and it is a phenomenal tool for breeding hate, and it is a phenomenal tool for threatening people who are trying to do work to improve their communities. So it is both the best and the worst thing. It is, right? It is. It is our world and will continue to be, and journalists need to learn how to operate in it. I don't understand the journalists who think that they can float above it and never talk to anybody or never engage with people. I enjoy the engagement. I enjoy the engagement too much. The bosses say that I should not engage as much. But if somebody is going to spend a significant portion of their life trolling me on social media, I feel like it's only respectful that I acknowledge all of that effort and all of that free time.
Very good. I'll remember that next time I tweet something. Let's talk a little bit, and I don't know if there is a typical day, but if there is one, what does your day look like? And then I'm going to ask you a little something about work-life balance too.
No. So I will preface it with this. I love my job. I love the people that I work with. More than anything, I truly believe that the work that we do matters. And as such, I choose to work more than my bosses tell me to. So this is not on the 9 News folks. But, our next team will start work on that night's 6 o'clock newscast around 7 or 7:30 in the morning is when people first start plugging in. We're bouncing ideas around. We're sharing research, that kind of thing. So I'm plugged in from home working on that. And then at 9:30, then we're on a call with other folks from the station. We're sorting out the stories of the day, and then I'm off to work on whatever I'm working on. Sometimes from home, sometimes I'm in a courtroom watching Mike Lindell talk about election fraud. I'm down at the Capitol talking to somebody. I'm off talking to somebody else, and then through the afternoon, the stories start to come together, and we put Next on at 6 o'clock. And then when Next is over at 6 o'clock, we debrief, we get ready for the next day and what our next team is going to go after then. And after that, I turn my attention to the 9 and the 10 o'clock newscasts.
And all of this, you have a family. Well,
I do. If you've seen them. No.
You still do have the family? Yeah, okay.
Yes. I have a wife and 2 young daughters. My daughters are 4 and 8. I will say that one of the greatest things about working in local journalism, and I would love to explain why I believe that local journalism is the future for so much of what is wrong with both the media and culture and society today. But one of the greatest things about local journalism is that, unlike a national journalist, I see my family every day. I have breakfast with my kids, and I have pretty well preserved weekends with them, and that matters a lot to me. The idea of doing journalism out of a suitcase around the country and parachuting in places where there are problems and then leaving 2 days later does not feel like an appealing life. I understand the reason why it's done. I understand the need for national media. I'm not sure how well society is served by that, and I definitely know it would not be very conducive to me having a great family relationship.
And what do your daughters think about you on TV, or do they even watch?
They understand that I'm on TV, but they don't really know more than that. I'll be honest with you, they love that I pop up on a Roku ad that goes across Roku City when you log on sometimes. They'll call me into the room to see that. Early attempts at having them actually watch the show resulted in them talking to the screen, then getting pissed that I wasn't talking back, because they're 4 and they're 8, and they think that every screen is something you talk to and it talks back, and they're mad, and we have videos of them being like, "Daddy's talking over me, Daddy's not listening to me, what is Daddy talking about?" So it was kind of traumatic for them, so they just don't care, they don't watch.
Yeah. You mentioned you just covered the Mike Lindell trial.
I did. I did every day for 2 weeks.
Which was not your typical day, and you did that for a couple of reasons, which you mentioned to me. How come? How come you did it?
Well, part of it was frustration that I thought that the Lindell trial and that his claims were not getting the attention that they deserved. Because I would say it like this: if Mike Lindell, the MyPillow guy, and his allies are right, and the 2020 election was rigged against Donald Trump by a Denver-based company under the direction of a Coloradan, an executive of that company, then I agree with Mike Lindell that that is the biggest crime in history. If Mike Lindell is lying and that didn't happen, then that lie is ruining the lives of Coloradans, is ruining a Colorado business, and is putting election workers across our state and other states in fear for their lives. So either way, it's a big deal. It's a big, big deal either way. And I think that it didn't get the attention that it deserved because I think the national media is sick of talking about the election rigging stuff. I think that the local media is scared as hell of political extremists and the violent threats that you get when you report on political extremists. I think that the political left doesn't like to talk about the election rigging claims because they don't want to give it oxygen. And I think that a lot on the right don't want to talk about the election rigging claims because the minute you actually have to explain how the election was rigged, that's when you sound goofy. And so a lot of people wanted to ignore it. And I don't think you should ignore it because, again, it's either, as Mike Lindell says, the biggest crime in history, or it's a lie that's ruining people's lives.
And my ears perked up when you talked about impacts on election workers too. I think I understood you had some concerns that the judgment, even though it was against Mike Lindell, may not have provided enough cover for election workers.
I mean, it wasn't what the plaintiffs asked for, to send a message to election workers that you will be safe both in your physical person and from life-altering defamatory smears. The plaintiffs asked for $62 million, and they got $2 and change. Lindell came out. Of course, now he's found liable for the defamation. They found that what he said was false and ruinous, but he still came out and proclaimed victory and said that he had won because he was only going to have to pay $2 million. He claims to be broke, but he said that that he's going to find a way to pay the $2 million. So I don't know. It was kind of a split decision at the end of the day. That's a jury, right? You know, jury had to weigh what was going on at the end of the day. I did think it was fascinating that both sides walked out of the courtroom and said that they won. So people can kind of parse that. But Lindell's not changing what he's doing. He's going to continue to make the election rigging claims about the exact same people and to add folks along the way. Mike and I got to know each other through this process. We knew each other a little bit before because I had called him. And I will say this, and this is a lesson to any newsmaker or public figure out there, and there's plenty of them in this room. It goes a long way if you just answer your phone when reporters call. Even if you don't have an answer, you can't say anything, just answer your phone. Mike Lindell answers his phone. And the second time I called him, he goes, "Is this the Denver Liar?" And I was like, "What?" He goes, "You're in my phone. It's the Denver Liar. Are you the Denver Liar?" I was like, "Well, Mike, if you put me in your phone as the Denver Liar, yes, I guess I am the Denver Liar. But thank you again for answering the phone call." But we got to know each other more over the course of the trial, and I felt like, he really came to know me as a person to the point that he felt comfortable saying that I'm a traitor to America on TV. And also ended up creating the promo code Kyle that you can save more than 50% off my pillow products with that promo code. We checked. So we came to know each other. But, so that stuff's fun to me, right? He calls me a traitor to America. That doesn't ruin my life, right? He calls some county election worker a traitor to America, and all of a sudden, every unhinged anonymous person on social media is posting photos of their house and the names of their family, and their life is ruined. And he's not going to stop. Yeah. And the folks who agree with him are not going to stop. But the journalism isn't going to stop either, because as long as there's liars, we will be in business.
Okay. Not that wasn't fun, but because that was pretty entertaining. It's
pretty fun for me.
Yeah, I'll bet it was. Well, I saw the video of you asking, firing questions at him from outside the courtroom. It was pretty entertaining. I'm not going to ask if you ever get recognized in public, because of course you do. You're especially local. But what are your interactions like with people that both say, "Oh my gosh, you're Kyle Clark," and versus those that say, "You son of a bitch, you're Kyle Clark." Yeah.
I mean, my conversations are the same either way, right? You put out your hand, you say, "Hi, I'm Kyle. It's really nice to meet you." The number of folks who won't shake hands with somebody because they disagree with them, I think, is a pretty sad statement about America, right? I mean, I don't want to argue with these people, especially about their upbringing, but the way I was raised, you meet somebody, you say hello, and you shake their hand, whether you like them or not, whether you disagree with them or not. The "I won't shake your hand" thing is that's interesting. But no, I'm always game for a conversation. I try to limit the length of it if somebody wants to have the conversation in front of my kids. Yeah. So if the very intoxicated woman who confronted me at the National Western is in the room, I'm very sorry that we didn't have a chance to talk longer. But I was with my children at the rodeo, and she really wanted to talk, and she had some strong feelings. I offered her my number, and I said, "We can continue this conversation later, but I'm sorry, I can't. I'm not going to stand here with you screaming at me in front of my children." And she declined both the handshake and my number. But no, I love talking to people.
And that shows. So, whether it's those interactions or your day-to-day work, what is something that folks here would be maybe surprised to know about the job, that maybe isn't what they see on TV or even what they surmise is behind the scenes? What's something that they may not know?
That's a really good question. I would say I don't know that it would be a preconception in this room, because I think a lot of folks in this room face similar criticism to what journalists do, and you might have a similar outlook, but I would say there is a popularized preconception that not only do journalists not care if we get something wrong, but we intentionally will get things wrong or mislead, when the fact is all of you know local journalists in your own community. And if you've ever talked to a local journalist about this, the idea that we have gotten something wrong makes you nauseous. It makes you want to throw up. It's the worst. It is the most horrendous feeling, because you know that you have given people incorrect information. You potentially have negatively impacted somebody's life or their career or their community. It's a sickening feeling to get something wrong. And even if you've been deceived into getting something wrong, it's still a sickening feeling to know that you repeated that deception and that you didn't catch it. So I would say there is, in some corners, a popular idea that journalists are either maliciously trying to get things wrong or just cavalier about it. And I just don't know how many journalists those folks know, because if you know a journalist, then you know it's somebody who will literally get physically ill about getting something wrong.
And then it does happen every now and then,
Yep.
whether intentional or not. So how do you correct that? How do you recover from that? How do you set the record straight?
You try to do it as forthrightly as possible by explaining, first off, as quickly as possible, hey, we got something wrong, to the extent that we're able to say, here's why we got it wrong. And when I say wrong, I mean a factual error, not a difference in interpretation or opinion or analysis or whatever else, but something that was factually incorrect. Then we owe it to the people who consume our journalism to correct it as quickly and as fulsomely as possible, and to say, I'm sorry. Like, those words should be in there, I'm sorry. And then to explain, to the extent that we can, how we will go about trying to avoid those errors in the future. Because journalists will make errors because journalists are human beings, and human beings make errors.
Well, now with that setup, I got to ask it, when was the last time that happened? Or was there a memorable time that has happened?
I mean, you don't forget mistakes. Like, you don't forget corrections. I will never forget the first one that I had at 9 News. So I've been with 9 News for going on 18 years, and it was a story that I did about the Denver International Airport and some questionable spending going on out there, and an allegation that workers were being reassigned to the pet projects of management as opposed to their duties. And I was a fairly young reporter at the time, which is not an excuse, it's just a fact of what happened. I thought that I had two independent sources, and I did not realize that those two sources knew each other and that they were both being deceptive to me. And when we didn't get a firm denial from the airport, then I made the mistake of thinking these two people in a position to know, and then no firm denial means that it is likely to be true, and we did the story, and it was, I don't know that it was false, but it was not fully accurate. And that story was 15, 16 years ago, and I think about it every week. Every week. And especially when we're piecing together a story based on source material, people, not documents, people, not, eyewitness video, audio, that kind of thing, of how absolutely certain am I that these people are not colluding with each other and I don't know about it.
You touched on it a little bit before with the way people interact with you, but it touched on, I think, the overall issue of civility, not shaking someone's hand, just basic manners. That's something that every certainly elected official and a lot of staff members in this room know very well from their town board meetings and city council meetings, maybe interactions with members of the public, in the public, sometimes interactions within, we can say it's a safe space, interactions within their own councils or boards, right?
Yeah, we put that on TV. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. Yes, you do. But in this bigger scheme of how people are relating to each other, how they're talking to each other, it was our president's initiative last year, a civility campaign, to try to start that up from the grassroots, because we're sure not going to see it from the federal level at this point. So try and build it locally. What do you think are the contributing factors to just people's inability to be human and civil to each other? And can we correct that? Is there a path?
That's a big question, right? That's a big question.
You told me to ask him anything.
That's true. That's true. I won't do that again. Let me talk about the media's role in that, right? So the bosses love when I say this, but I will also, for the record, they've never told me not to say it, and they've heard that I've said this again and again. The media needs to take stock of how its own behavior and actions have contributed to the divisiveness and the lack of civility in America. And And that plays out in a couple of different ways. As it relates to the folks in this room, it's the media assuming that everybody involved in government or anybody in a seat of power of any kind is up to something nefarious just because they're there, right? That level of like confrontation for no reason in the media. The idea in the media that if a public official or somebody in a position of public trust changes their mind, then they must be deceitful or a liar or an opportunist, as opposed to a human being who gets new information and changes their mind, right? I mean, if you show me somebody who has been in politics for 30 years and has never changed their mind about anything, I will show you a dumbass. Like, you cannot take in decades worth of information and never change your mind about anything. Like, that's crazy. But then reporters come along and they're just like, why'd you flip-flop? That's obnoxious. Why'd you change your mind? What led you to change your mind? Do you have a well-reasoned rationale for it? Or do you not have a good rationale and it sure looks like opportunism, or it sure looks like whoever feathered your nest last? Or do you have a well-meaning rationale for changing your mind? Those are two ways that the media contributes to a lack of civility and respect. I will also say this, and this to me is the bigger issue. The idea that the media, in particular the local media, for decades adopted a model of what is newsworthy being the litany of tragedy. You turn on the news and you see the 10 worst things that happened in Colorado today, plus weather and sports and maybe an animal story at the end. That by marinating the culture in that for generations, that people believe that the news is an accurate depiction of the world outside their window. And somebody in this room is going to put that quote on Twitter today and be like, he admitted it. You fool. Listen, the idea that you tell everybody that the world outside their window is a scary place in which their neighbors want to kill them, and that tragedy befalls anybody who dares step out into the world. Oh, and guess what? You're not even safe in your home because something in your refrigerator may kill you. We'll tell you at 10. Tell me now. You have me right now. Tell me now. What is it that's in there that's going to kill me? But this fear-based model of you've got to watch to see the terrible things that happen, which, let's be honest, it's tragedy porn. That's what it is. That's what the local news has fed people for generations, is tragedy porn. It's voyeurism into the worst things happening, even if they don't impact a lot of people, as opposed to doing the harder work of looking at actual, real, impactful issues that are boring, not great on TV, but that actually impact people's lives. Instead, we go for the easy stuff, the car crashes, the murders, the house fires, that kind of thing. And you steep people in a bath of that for generations, and then the media does a piece. Why don't Americans trust their neighbors? I don't know, friends. Why don't you think they trust their neighbors? Maybe they're watching your channel. So we need to have journalism that is an accurate reflection of the world around us, which is that we have some big, intractable issues to try and solve, and that there's people working hard on trying to solve them. And there will always be jackasses doing stupid things, and there will always be random tragedies that befall people. But are those the most important things that have happened in Colorado or anywhere else on a given daily basis? I don't believe so. The next team doesn't believe so. We've created 30 minutes a day that does not do that kind of news, and we've proven that there's a market for it, which I work in commercial media, right? The commercials pay the salaries of the journalists to go do the work. We're not funded by a billionaire. We're not funded by a nonprofit. We're not funded by subscriptions. We're funded by the people watching because they're watching commercial media. But we've proven that there is a market for a different kind of local news if people are interested, but it takes courage of local news leadership to put it on the air, to stick with it, and especially to stand by our work when, no offense, people like you and other folks in the community crawl up their backsides because of something that I've said, not because it was inaccurate, but because they didn't like it or they didn't think somebody would say it on TV.
Okay. It's a great segue because we talked a little about what it means to be a journalist, and you caught a little flack, you said early on, when you launched your word of thanks micro-giving campaigns. But I want to celebrate that.
Thank
and
you.
I want to give you a chance to talk about what you've done, what it's meant, and how that's enriched a lot of folks' lives, and what its future is.
I appreciate that. No, I will just say that, I mean, I started working in journalism when I was 15 at a little radio station, 5,000 watt ag radio station in the town over from where I grew up. You do like the farm prices, and you do the local news and the weather and that kind of thing. And then you play conservative talk like all day, and then you have baseball games at night and things like that. So I've been doing media for a while now. I guess that would be like 25 years. And when I'm done with it, the Word of Thanks microgiving from our next viewers is going to be the thing that I am most proud of. Unless I'm able to kill Governor Polis's stupid pedestrian bridge, then I will be most proud of that.
We'll get to that. We'll get to that.
But if I can't kill the governor's bridge, then I will be most proud of the Word of Thanks. Folks, the bridge is so dumb. We'll talk about it in a minute. But okay, the microgiving. So we started that during the lockdown period of the pandemic.
Right.
The part where everybody was supposed to, what was that, like the 12 days to stop the spread or whatever that bullshit was?
Yeah.
So when we started during that, and somebody on our promotions team was like, man, we keep hearing from these nonprofits and they're just getting hosed and the bottom's dropping out for these nonprofits in our community. Would you think about giving them like a shout out? Or like putting like a mug on your desk in your home studio. This is back when I was down in my basement. I had that wood ring behind me by the fireplace.
Yes.
The real ones know. And so they're like, could you do like a mug and a shout out? And I was like, well, what are they going to do with a shout out? They probably need money, right? So we talked about that, and we decided that, you know what? It would be appropriate for a local news station or a local news show to vet nonprofits, vet them for financial stability and strong leadership and infrastructure to deliver on their mission, to vet those nonprofits, and then to directly ask people to give. Not to do a feature piece that at the end the anchor says, if you'd like to learn more, go to 9news.com. You go to 9news.com, and you look for the article, and you go to the article, you scroll to the bottom, then you click on their website, you go to their website, you try to find the donate page. You find the donate page. No wonder that doesn't work. So what we decided to do was something that was very, very direct and very frictionless. And we also took out the idea that people on TV should tell other people to give their money, because that's obnoxious. Because it's like, I don't know, man, you own 200 sport coats. Why don't you give some of your damn money? So we built Word of Thanks as a cooperative thing where I ask viewers if they'd kick in $5, and I match the first 50 people who give $5, and we get a snowball rolling, and we see what we can raise every week for a nonprofit. And we started that just about 5 years ago, like 5 years and a couple weeks ago. And we have now done 260 some of these campaigns, trying to touch every corner of Colorado for small to mid-sized nonprofits, asking people in the community, will you give to a cause that doesn't directly impact you often, in a community you have never visited sometimes? And the answer from Coloradans has been a resounding yes. They have raised $15 million through their $5 donations. And when we started it, I very foolishly promised, I'll do this as long as you'll do this. And here we are 5 years later, and we're still doing the thing. But I will tell you this. Has it waxed and waned with time and with how philanthropy has worked? I mean, you all know this, right? The way that funding for philanthropy has worked over the last couple of years. Huge pandemic bump. And then you've got, like, everybody's fat and happy on the ARPA dollars, and that's propping up nonprofits, and the bottom drops out of that. And it's hit a really rough time. Our viewers went through some of those peaks and valleys, and now they've built something even more sustainable. We have 5,000 monthly givers who are signed up to support every single weekly cause that we feature that we have not even identified. What that means is that our weekly microgiving campaigns, I say our, meaning with our viewers, are raising a minimum of $40,000 a week for each nonprofit that we feature, often reaching $50,000, $60,000, $75,000 or more, which is real money for small to mid-sized nonprofits across the state. I'll give you just one example. 2 weeks ago, we were in Montrose and San Miguel counties for Telluride Angel Baskets and the Fresh Food Hub in Norwood. They split the proceeds of a campaign because they're two of the smaller campaigns that we've worked with recently. But we really, truly are trying to touch everywhere in Colorado. If we have not gotten to your county or your community, let me know. Email me. Like Prime, I ain't hard to find. Kyle at 9news.com, next at 9news.com. I want to know about the nonprofits that are punching above your weight in your community. Our goal is not to be a rescue funder. We're not a funder of last resort, nor are we a startup funder. We fund nonprofits that are doing good work with an established track record, can do more with more, and we put a check in their hands immediately to go and do that work. And I talked that entire time without ever acknowledging your question, which is that we got pushback for this, which was true because I heard from both journalists and viewers that it is not a journalist's job to advocate. Well, I hear that too every time I criticize a politician you don't like, and then I criticize, or a politician you do like, and then when I criticize a politician you don't like, then it's great. It's only advocacy when you don't like it. But then when people say it's not your job to advocate for nonprofits, I mean, the hell it isn't. Like, I'm a Coloradan, right? I'm also a Denverite. I'm a dad. I'm a husband. Like, I'm a lot of things other than a journalist. I happen to have a journalism platform, but this should be ingrained in what we do as journalists, which is to lift up the best of our community and to shine a spotlight on things that need improvement. So I am so proud of what our viewers have done through Word of Thanks. It's the happiest thing I've ever been a part of, and it comes around every Wednesday, and it's a freaking joy because no matter what is in the news, no matter how bad things are, we can do something about it. One last 10-second example, our campaign this week. Last week, we reported that the federal funding for the LGBTQ support services on the 988 hotline is going to be pulled. Why did that exist in the first place? It was an understanding that when that the LGBTQ community has particular mental health needs that overlap with everybody else's, but specifically deal with family rejection and harassment and higher rates of substance use and things like that. So that's why those services existed. They're going away at the federal level. I can't control that. What can we control? Well, there's awesome nonprofits like Envision You in Colorado that have done that work for a long time with a specific focus on families with an LGBTQ family member and how do straight family members provide better mental health support and emotional support for people. So we're going to raise $40,000 to $50,000 for them this week to expand their work. And that's what we do. That's what we do week after week. Community College of Aurora lost a Homeland Security grant to run their citizenship and naturalization classes. These are classes for people who want to be Americans. They have followed the rules every step of the way. They are on the doorstep of becoming Americans. This, again, is what people will say that they want folks to do. That's what they say they want folks to do. That grant got pulled. It was $50,000 a year. We talked to CCA. We said, hey, if you bare bones this thing to help get your students who are largely immigrant, lower income, across the finish line of becoming American citizens, what do you need a year to do it? They talked to people. They said, we can keep the class going for $30,000 a year. We put that in front of the community. Community raised $100,000 in 2 weeks, and those classes are going to continue for the next 3 years. It's people being able to live their values through local media as opposed to just being shit terrified of their neighbors all the time.
Not that it matters, because wow. But have any of those early critics become converts and say, you know what, that's actually a really cool thing you're doing?
Yeah, some people have come around to it. Some folks have come around to it, and you know what? It's like anything else. If you're doing the right thing for the right reasons, you don't require everyone's agreement. You just need people of good faith to go with you and do it. And it's the same thing that we talked about when we launched Next. People were apoplectic about what we were doing on TV in terms of commentary and analysis. And I said, well, great news, friends. We got 8.5 hours of other TV that you can watch all day long that's never going to offer you analysis and commentary. So you know what? Instead of standing there in the line at the ice cream shop and heckling the guy who's ordering strawberry, well, just get chocolate or your favorite flavor and shut the hell up and move on with your life. Well, why are you trying to take away somebody else's choice? Why are you trying to dictate their choices as opposed to just making your own? Live your life. No. Get people of goodwill together, move in a direction.
That's a good shift. I want to talk specifically about Next for a second, because when it came on in 2016, I was one of those that was like, oh my God, what is this? I didn't get it.
71% of our viewers left in 3 months.
Yeah, and to be perfectly honest, every now and then I'll turn it on and I'm watching. I'm like, I still don't get it, but
that's fine.
It happens.
Sometimes we do a bad show.
Hey, but I'm still watching and saying sometimes the same things. But that being said, you have, over that time, which I think will be 10 years next year.
It'll be 10 years. Yeah, 10 years next summer.
Yeah. Will there be some kind of 10-year celebration tour?
If they don't haul my ass off the air, it's a win.
Okay. It takes a village to do a show like
Yes.
that. You have a great team, some of whom I've gotten to interact with. I can't dislike it too much because I've been on it once or twice, right?
Plenty of people who have been on it do.
Well, for the right reason. Talk about the team element of it, and if any individuals you want to call out, but if not, I will. But
yeah, no, we are a small but mighty team, and it's interesting. Last year, we lost our only other original team member from the launch of the show 8 years ago, which I was kind of crushed by. But then you look around and you're like, oh, these people have gone on to just like these great jobs. Right. Our first producer of the show, it was the first show that she had ever produced, meaning that she was in our talent development program as a college grad, but she was a Colorado native, and she's so talented, so smart. And she went to go take a job in Portland, Maine with one of our small affiliates after training at 9 News, and we decided to launch next. And my wife and I were on the East Coast for a trip, and we went up to Portland. I talked to her. I said, Carrie, would you please come home and do this new show with us? And she's like, I haven't been a producer for a year. And I'm like, great, you're wildly smart. You care so much about Colorado, and you have no bad habits. Please come do this show. She went from there to the network level. And had a phenomenal career there. Another one of our producers went on to become the assistant news director, then the news director, went on to lead a different newsroom in the market. Another one went on to be our assistant news director at a different time, and then went out into nonprofit advocacy. Another guy went into the tech sector. We've had so many talented people work on the show over the years. I can't be sad that people are going on to bigger and better, but we have great people. We have Marshall Zellinger, who is, for my money, you can clap for him. Clap for
politics guy.
Politics guy, Marshall Zellinger. So a little inside baseball thing about TV news. There are some people who turn around a story in a day. They're generally called general assignment or day turn reporters. And then there are some people who will get weeks or months to work on longer term investigative stories. All of us do that to some extent, but some people mostly churn and burn every day. Some people work on longer term stuff. Marshall Zellinger is the best day turn reporter in Colorado because he will turn something in a day that will take other people 2 or 3 days to do. And that's his goal every day, is that he wants to turn the story that day that other people watch and they go, oh, damn, that was my story for tomorrow. He tries to do it all in one day. He's ridiculously talented and hardworking and ethical and smart, and he's just everything that you would ever want in a reporter. He's phenomenal.
I think that has some relationship with his personal habits of distance running as hobbies. He's very fast.
Oh, did you all see the time we had him race an RTD train? So this is apologies. I know Chris is here. Apologies to any of the other RTD folks there. A paragon of good government. We've been dragging RTD for a long time, but that's fine. It increases the speed of their trains. They were doing slow zones for track maintenance because somebody realized, like, oh, you can't just lay track and neglect it for however long. So they're doing that. And the slow zones, they're like, don't worry, it'll be fast. And then it turned into slow train summer. And Marshall was joking the other day. He goes, I'm faster than those trains. He's very fast. He also runs distance. And I was like, you want to race a train on TV? So we set it up where he was racing the pace of a train on live TV over the course of, he did a little bit more than a mile, so it was over the course of like 6 to 7 minutes, but started at an RTD station just more than a mile from the station, and then ran to the station with his iPhone broadcasting live in front of him, checking out him, and he absolutely beat the train. It was close, but he did beat the train's time, but he was explaining that, for these folks who are trying to use it for commuting in their daily life, like, what's the one thing that public transit must be? It must be reliable, right? And he was showing that, if you're as fast as Marshall Zellinger, you could just run where you're going faster. So that's one of his many talents.
That's right. Well, it's multimodal, right? I mean, talk a lot of... That's for sure. And so in that vein, Marshall, great guy. Steve, I've worked with in the past, great guy. And you've got new people coming in all the time who we get to engage with. What about the folks behind the scenes, people you don't get to see? You mentioned your producer, but I mean,
Yep.
what does putting that together look like, and what are all the moving parts?
Sure. So Next has a single producer. Her name is Mallory Harris, and she is exceptionally talented. She came to us from Columbus, Georgia, in her first job And our news director called her back on a whim and was just kind of like, this seems weird. Like, you're applying for a job in Denver out of Columbus, Georgia. You have 2 years of producing experience. That's kind of interesting. But was just giving her the formality call to say, like, hey, maybe come back in a couple of years and do whatever. She gets off the phone with her, and my news director, Megan, comes to me and goes, you got to talk to this woman. She is so impressive. So we get on the phone with her, and the amount that she knew about Next from watching it across the country, I guess like some college journalism programs have mentioned it here and there, so she got onto it there when she was at UGA. And so she knew all about Next. She comes out a week or two later for the interview, and she had taken it upon herself to study up on Colorado politics, because that's what we cover so much of. And she's talking about storylines going back years and players, and I've always wanted to ask this person this and this person that. And it was one of those where it was like, do we let her fly home, or do we just like imprison her here and not let her leave? But a phenomenal talent. And so she leads our show every day. She's the producer. She works with me and our reporters to determine which stories we're going to be pursuing. And typically what will happen is we'll have a couple percolating for weeks at a time, and it's a matter of when are they close enough to the surface that we say, okay, that one's ready to go, plug it out, put it on TV. Plug it out, put it on TV. So she puts those things together, works on the form and function of the show, and I would say probably about 25 to 50% of the show is stuff that I originally write, and then the other 50 to 75% she does like a dry write on it, and then I stylize it, add stuff, or she'll write it in bullet points and I'll take it from there, that kind of thing. So she'll put the show together in that way. She coordinates with our crews throughout the day in terms of what's being put together. We have a digital and social producer who translates everything we do from TV onto other platforms, because I don't know if you've heard, TV is dying. So basically she translates everything onto social media beyond what we do as reporters. And then we grab snippets of other folks' time at the station to edit a piece of video or shoot a piece of video. But we're a small but mighty team. We're a three-person team with generally 1 or 2 reporters who rotate in every day. And
you mentioned that early on, it took a little bit for it to catch on, right? And
it bombed. Is that yeah? No, it bombed.
I'm spinning it in a positive way.
Sure.
So one, was there ever any concern or actual talk about pulling the plug on it?
Oh, from me? Absolutely. I mean, you couldn't have pounded a nail into with a hammer. I mean, no, I was very uptight about it. But no, the bosses said, we're going to give this thing some runway to see, because we knew that the people who are watching the traditional newscast might not be a fan of what we were trying to do. Right. We were trying to attract another audience. So they said, we're going to be patient. We're going to give it time. And I will also just say, and this is what I tell anybody who's leaning into innovation or doing things differently. Everybody says, like, give yourself permission to fail. Okay, yeah, that's good. But if you deny yourself the permission to go back to what you were doing, that was hugely liberating for us. Yeah. Our management from 9 News and our ownership, which is a company called Tegna, it's the broadcast side of the old Gannett, if anybody knows the old Gannett that used to own newspapers, I'll say they have been phenomenal people to work for the last 18 years. They have never once interfered with a piece of my journalism. There are a tiny fraction of journalists in America that can say that their bosses have never interfered with their journalism, other than to say, like, make sure it's accurate and fair, fact check, that kind of thing. But Tegna and 9 News from the start said, you might fail, hope you don't fail. What you can't do is go back to what we used to do. You can do another new thing, and then another new thing, and then another new thing, but you can't go back. And that was hugely liberating for us, because that's when you have to push the boat off the dock, right? And for our team, that was such a big deal.
Okay, so you get to the point where it catches on. It's obviously popular. Now, almost 10 years later, are you seeing it replicated or copied around the country?
We have worked with a number of our Tegna sister stations to spin up something different, or something similar to what we are doing, different from what they are doing, and they've had varied levels of success. I think the ones that have done the best are the ones that don't try to copy what Next does, but to try to get the ethos of what we're doing and then apply it however it best works in their city. The most successful are in Boise and Minneapolis. And they're trying to get another one off the ground in Sacramento. I'm also trying to spread the gospel of our Word of Thanks microgiving to other stations. That's so easy to well, not easy. It can be replicated with work in other places for local media to do. I don't even care if it's one of our Tegna stations. Somebody else should just rip it off. Like another station, just rip it off and do it for the good of your community. And if you don't raise $50,000 a week, if you raise $5,000, great. $5,000 matters. Do it and build something. It's just, it feels like a no-brainer to me. So yeah, there have been attempts to spin up something separate. my thought was that if Next got traction, that there would be other similar programs like it in Denver, and there are not, which means either we're doing a really good job or we're doing such a bad job that nobody else wants anything to do with it. Because no, everybody else in town is just doing standard newscasts.
All right, got to do it. Let's talk about the bridge. But I want to do it. But I want to do it in a way that
is he still here? Is the governor still here? No, he's busy. He left.
No, he didn't stick around. I want to do it in a way that's relatable. My advocacy team, certainly me historically, we have interactions with our senators, our representatives, the governor, their staff, and all of that. And we have a job to do. It's always done with respect, professionalism, etc. You have an angle on this bridge, and you have been forceful on it. But just downstairs earlier, you went to ask the governor a question about something unrelated to that, and he didn't blow by you because you've been rough on that. Talk about, first of all, you can talk about how you feel about the bridge, because I think it's hilarious, and then also, but how the person, there's no personal issues, no personality conflicts, and no grudges.
Yeah, no, I would say. I mean, I'm sure many of you have much closer relationships with the governor than I do as a journalist. In my interactions, he's always been professional with me, and what I appreciate about him is that he does not personalize conflict. That you can disagree with him about an issue, and it is a disagreement about an issue. There's a lot of folks. I'm sure not in this room. I'm sure it's people outside this room, but in public life that are just enormous snowflakes. And the first time that you disagree with them, they just melt down, and it colors the next 10 years of interactions. And I'm always curious how people that fragile even want to go into public life. But you know what? It's your life. I found the governor to not be like that. You can have a disagreement with him. You can have an animated disagreement with him, and it's that. It's a disagreement about an issue, right? I mean, also, I'm not imputing his character, right? I'm disagreeing with his judgment on something, or I'm questioning him about something, or when he took the Tabor rebates that he tried to kill, and then he put his name on them and sent them out. I was like, come on, that's slimy, but that is what it is, right? But I don't think he personalized that. So no, I mean, he personalized the checks, but but I mean, no. I mean, downstairs, I went to ask him about the lawsuit that he lost yesterday about cooperation with ICE. I mean, he halfway lost it. He didn't completely lose it, but the way that he was going about cooperating with ICE, the judge blocked. He's going to have to find a different way to do it. But no, we had a very friendly conversation about it. He's a professional, right? And I mean, he understands that I'm there to do a professional job. He's there to do a professional job. He also understands that it's not a journalist's job to kiss your ass. And the number of people in public life that think that a journalist's job is to be their comm staff. If that's the case, save your municipality money and fire your comm staff and just have local reporters do your bidding every day. That's not our job. That's not our role in the process. Our role is to be a skeptic, and our role is to highlight a number of voices and to ask questions that you don't like. And you know what? Defensible projects, defensible ideas, defensible plans don't mind questions. They don't, right? Because they are by nature defensible. Now, you could always run into a reporter who's unscrupulous or dishonest or dumb. Those things happen. But if you have a good faith idea or a good faith plan, that can withstand some scrutiny. So no, the governor's never personalized any of the criticism. But we'll see what he thinks about this bridge thing. Because, real quick, what he wants to do is he wants to build a pedestrian bridge on the front lawn of the state capitol that will start on the west lawn, kind of like the front lawn of the state capitol, wind its way. It's like a winding thing. Picture like a water slide in an amusement park if the amusement park has been abandoned in a zombie apocalypse and it's dry and kind of nasty looking. So it's like this winding pathway down over 4 lanes of Lincoln and into Lincoln's Veteran Memorial Park. We found out through open records requests, God bless Cora. We could talk about that terrible Cora bill if you want. But I know you all lobbied for it. It's fine. But through open records, we found out that he wanted to connect it to Civic Center Park, but the city of Denver was like, no, you're not doing that. That's a National Historic Landmark. Get that out of here. So he's going to do it on state land. This was pitched to the public is an $18 to $20 million project to be raced through by next summer in time for Colorado's 150th, America's 250th birthday. We also learned through more open records requests that the $18 to $20 million is just for like the floating bridge without connecting anything to either end, or pulling permits, or insurance, or paying the general contractor's fee, or putting the art on it. So it's not $18 to $20 million. It's really 28.5. And any of you ever tried to do something fast? Is cheap part of fast? Cheap is not part of fast, so I doubt it'll even be 28.5. But anyway, he wants to put this thing in. It would be like a legacy project for him before he leaves office. And we took a look at it, took a look at every argument for it. None of them were convincing. None of them were compelling. Things like it'll help pedestrian safety. Really? Does anybody know how pedestrian safety works? You think people are going to take a 10-minute winding bridge instead of playing Frogger going across Lincoln straight across? No, nobody's going to do that. They said it's about wheelchair accessibility to the Capitol. The Capitol has real access issues. You don't fix that with a $28 million winding bridge out front. That's an insult. And then lastly, they said it's so the school kids can eat their lunches out in front of the Capitol. Sweet Jesus, for $28.5 million, that's what you're going to do? So none of the rationale is convincing other than the fact that the governor and some of his rich donor friends want this thing. And I tell you what, in a different media ecosystem, both newspapers' editorial boards would have been up this thing's backside in a second. Every TV station's I-team would have been on it like flies on excrement. But you know what? There's a lot of things going on these days. Media companies are owned by whoever media companies are owned by, and criticism of certain projects is not coming to bear in the media ecosystem. So we did our first ever 6-minute long commentary segment on Next earlier this week, taking apart this thing piece by piece to say, you know what? There are some places in Colorado that are too iconic, too beautiful to just become the subject of the governor and his rich friends' pet projects. And one of them is the front lawn of the state capitol. And the idea that Coloradans aren't going to know necessarily that this is happening, and that all of a sudden next year they're going to drive by the Capitol and go, what the hell is that thing? And they're going to be upset about it. And by that time, it'll be permanent. And somebody before that time needs to politely say to the governor, as I did, being governor comes with perks and it comes with power. It should. I respect that. But there must be limits. And one of those limits has to be imposing your will through pet projects in public places just because you and some of your friends want them, not because the community wants them. And somebody must be able to tell the governor and the wealthiest folks in the state no. And I totally understand why people will only privately tell me that they don't like the bridge and they feel like it's hazardous to them to come out and say it publicly. But somebody's got to say it. So it was me. So I said to him politely, this is your office, the Capitol. This is not your property.
Okay. So if any of you are contemplating any improvement projects at City or Town Hall...
Hey, Jeffco in the house. The number of people who sent me video of the Jeffco pedestrian bridge to nowhere, and the Wadsworth and Bowles, yeah? And the number of people that were like, you know, son, you're too young to remember, but this happened or whatever. And I was like, friend, that was one of my very first stories at 9 News about that bridge to nowhere. Still standing, which is good, right? It was built well. Congratulations. I will also say I think there's a huge difference between a municipality trying to do something like that in the middle of their community and the governor saying, I'm going to slap this thing as a hood ornament on the Capitol.
I can't believe we just burned through an entire hour. I want to ask you a question that is really a short answer. What's something that you maybe don't know about municipal government that you wish you did because you gave your email address earlier? Folks might want to share something with you. What's something that 271, not all in this room, but representatives of our 271 municipalities that you don't know statewide that, and I know you're going to have some conversations later, but what's something that they can share with you that would be helpful?
I really appreciate the opportunity to close on that. Journalists, by large, are generalists. We cover a number of different topics, right? I'm covering a federal defamation case against My Pillow guy one day. I'm covering the governor's wasteful spending the next day, right? We don't know what we don't know. So I would invite you to reach out to us, in particular our next team. That's next@9news.com. You can email me directly. I'm Kyle@9news.com. I do get deluged with emails. I try to read them all. I don't always get to them. I beg people to email the next team because Mallory, our producer, or Marshall will see something. They'll grab it. They'll bring it to my attention. But we don't know what we don't know. So please don't assume that we know what your challenges are. And please don't assume that we know what your successes are. And I'm not talking about press releases. Press releases are fine. But just a one-line note that says, hey, I'm in Alamosa and this is going on. Y'all know about that? Or you keep talking about this, but I've never heard you explain how that impacts Sterling and other communities like it. Please let us know. If you see yourself in a story that we are talking about, as in see your challenge, but you don't see yourself and your community represented, tell us. Because we would love that opportunity, but we're not necessarily going to, cold call Cortez to ask what's going on or if such and such impacts them. Let us know about what's going on in your community. And when you get a win on an intractable issue, if you get a win on something that you know other communities are struggling with, drop us a note. It doesn't have to be formal. Please, press releases, they go in the garbage. Your personal messages are what connect. So tell us about your wins, tell us about your challenges so that we can better reflect what really goes on in Colorado on a day-to-day basis and not the litany of tragedy that just makes people hate their neighbors like they do on social media.
Folks, please join me in thanking Kyle Clark.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you all for attending. Oh, all right. Yeah.
How about it?
No, they're
Thank you,
gonna
Kevin.
stand. Thank you.
Thank you.
Don't forget, if you are your municipality's voting delegate in the annual business meeting, you can pick up your ballot starting at 1:45. That stops at 2:15. Enjoy the great sessions this afternoon and explore Main Street.